Welcome to HTB, or How to Become, the podcast where careers start with a conversation. Each episode, we sit down with someone actually doing the job you're curious about, from trades to tech, healthcare to hands-on skilled work. You'll hear how they got started, what the day-to-day really looks like, what they earn, and what they wish they'd known before they began. Whether you're a student, a parent, or someone thinking about a career change, these real stories are here to help you figure out your next step. Let's jump into today's conversation and learn how to become, well, anything. Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Bernard Peters. Today, we're sitting down with Kristy Nalder to explore the career of a pediatric occupational therapist, the clinician who works with babies, toddlers, and kids to help them with everything from grasping a crayon and using utensils to getting dressed, calming their bodies, and keeping up in the classroom. In the United States, pediatric OTs typically earn somewhere in the $80,000 to low $100,000 range once established, with averages reported from the low 70s up into the $110,000 plus range, depending on setting, region, and experience. The path usually takes about 6 to 7 years of college and graduate school, a bachelor's degree, then a 2 to 3 year occupational therapy program with pediatric fieldwork, followed by the national board exam and state licensure. Pediatrics is the single biggest practice area in OT, and the workforce is predominantly female, with most therapists in their 30s and 40s balancing caseloads across clinics, homes, and schools. If you love working with children, enjoy problem solving at the level of real daily routines, and want a hands-on healthcare career that's both creative and evidence-based, this episode will walk you through how to become a pediatric occupational therapist. Kristy, what first drew you to occupational therapy, and what made you decide to focus specifically on working with kids and families?
I kind of fell into OT, to be honest. I was in college. I was studying psychology. Basically, I was just studying everything, and then I was taking a lot of psychology classes at the time.
Okay.
I studied abroad for a year, didn't focus so much on school or my direction, just had a great time living in Australia, loved that.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was very cool. I came back and my university was like, you have to declare a major at this point. I just kind of looked at like what I had the most of, and I had taken so many psychology classes. So I was like, I'm going to do that. That's my quickest route. Part of the psychology program is I worked with a professor who was doing autism research. And this is around like 2008, 2009. I had heard of autism. I'd never seen autism. I didn't really know what it was. And so I was doing this type of therapy called ABA. It's applied behavior analysis. And I was working in this autism program and I loved it with some caveats. It was a lot of like with a clipboard in front of a kid, running through all these trials. And I loved the relationships I was building and how much I was learning. I just didn't exactly want to do that every day. So from there, I kind of started exploring. I was talking to some of the families of the kids I was working with, and they were also getting this thing called occupational therapy. So I set up some opportunities to go shadow some different OTs that were working in the area. And through that, I decided that that was a little bit more my style. That's what I wanted to go in that direction.
Yeah.
I really was kind of like about to graduate and I didn't know what to do with psychology. Like I knew I would have to go further. I just knew school wasn't done because I couldn't really find a job right out of school. So
Yeah.
um,
That was
I
a tough
applied to,
year too.
yeah. And I applied to some OT programs and I applied like kind of, I consider it West Coast because there really weren't that many, but everywhere like Colorado, New Mexico, California, Nevada, and Oregon. And I did a couple interviews and I ended up getting in and this just kind of fell into place. I did take a year off between undergrad and grad school. So I went and worked at a resort for a while and did not focus on school for a little bit. But honestly, some of the things I did at the resort, like now that I'm an OT, I just realized like how OT is so ingrained in everyday life. So I don't know. It more so makes me feel like I landed in the right place.
And then what made you focus specifically on kids versus older adults?
First of all, I didn't really know that OTs did anything else besides kids at the time. That was
Yeah,
my only experience. That's all I really knew. Even when I was interviewing, I very like kid focused because I didn't know. I didn't know the extent of it.
yeah,
Um, I honestly probably didn't really know the extent of OT until really my first year of OT school, and I learned all the different areas that OTs could work in.
yeah.
I think I've always had a passion for kids. My mom was an elementary school teacher.
Oh, amazing.
Um, yeah, I always just kind of knew I wanted to work with kids, so I've kind of continued in that pathway. During school, I did get experience with adults and like different types of settings, but I always kind of fall back on kids.
Okay. Yeah, I've got a personal story from the adult OT side. My my brother-in-law like 3 years ago, he got in a paragliding accident and broke his spine, so he's paralyzed from the waist down. And after his surgeries, he managed to get a bed at Craig Hospital, which is in just outside of Denver, Colorado.
Hmm.
And they specialize in like TBIs and spinal cord injuries. And we visited him quite a bit up there. And yeah, he had a dedicated OT, and she was just amazing at helping him get back to being able to live a normal life. Being a paraplegic. So yeah,
Yeah,
it was amazing to see that side of things and just how much support it was and how much she helped him.
that's awesome.
So, can you walk us through like a typical day to day as a pediatric OT?
Yeah, so I currently work in the school district. So I have typically a regular caseload would be you have a few different schools, and then you support students that are in the special education program. So it's all different abilities. You might have kids in an ESN class, which is more of our like severe disabilities, but it's like essential needs. And so you're working on a lot more like life skills and things like that in those classes. You might have kids all the way into like honors programs, but maybe they have autism or ADHD and they learn a little bit different. We might need to accommodate or make some changes to their classroom. Um, how we provide our therapies is sometimes we're going into the classroom, you're working a lot with the teacher and like the paraprofessional aides in there. So it's a lot of educating the staff as well as working with kids. Other times you have small groups of kids that come to you. Uh, a part of my job is I do preschool assessments. So all the kids coming in that are like 2 or 3 years old that are about to go into school for the very first time, but their pediatricians have identified them as having some extra needs. Those are the kids that we're assessing, and that way we're getting them kind of set up right when they start school. So they're going to have their OT or their physical therapy, speech, special education teachers. We all kind of work as a team. So we're trying to get those kids started early.
Okay, so what is a when a new child comes in, how do you figure out what they really need help with? Like, how do you make those assessments?
A lot of ways. A lot of it is just observation and kind of being a detective and learning what we know about like child development and those types of things that you do learn in school. Um, Part of it is just knowing like the system, the downstream effects. So, how might this impact them later? There's lots of kids that come and they may have a identified disability or something like that, but they may not need the support in school. School is kind of a niche of OT, so I really have to look at like how is this going to impact them at school? Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. And then I would figure out kind of interventions that you would put in place. Sometimes interventions are actually that direct therapy time, and sometimes interventions are maybe we just need to get them a rubber band to put on their seat so they can move their feet while they're learning. So it can be something very small to something a little bit bigger.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So you work with a whole wide range of disabilities.
Hmm.
Do you do you find the different OTs kind of specialize with different sets of disabilities with kids, or are you having to tackle all these different disabilities with your own creative problem solving?
I mean, you do kind of have to be a jack of all trades in this
Yeah.
area because, yeah, sometimes I really don't even care what the disability is. I'm just looking at, like, okay, this is where we are, this is where we want to go, and how are we going to get there? There are definitely, I mean, OTs come in all shapes and sizes, and we went to school at different times, and we've worked in all different other settings before this. So, there's definitely people that have, stronger skills in this one area or in other areas. But as OTs, I mean, I would say our biggest strength is that we're problem solvers.
Yeah.
So I think if I don't know what to do, I'm going to problem solve how to figure out what to do. So I think that in general is just comes with the job. So yeah, you kind of
And you
have
have a
to
team that you
be
work with
ready
as
for all.
well. Yeah, and then you have a team that you work with as well, right?
Yes. Yeah. So each school has a special education team. Some people support other schools as well. So I might be on this team and then another team. And then, say, the speech therapist could be on one of my teams and then also another team. So part of the job is definitely those soft skills. So, like working with teams and having different perspectives. And everyone kind of comes at the approach with their different lens, from their discipline or from their experience, or even schools have their own cultures. So I work in, some schools that are very military based, and in some ways, like the approach is a little bit different. And then I may work in other schools where it's more arts and creativity, and then that one you have to approach a little bit different. So every school is a little different.
So taking a step back, so you took a year off between your undergrad and your grad school. So is your graduate degree specifically in occupational therapy?
Yeah. So the entry
Okay.
level way that you can get into being an OT now is that you do have to have a master's degree. So you can't have a bachelor's and then become an OT. You used to. And then the people that had bachelors were grandfather claused in, and they're able to be OTs. But now the entry level criteria is that you have a master's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And is that generally something that you have to commit to and pay out of pocket on your own, or do you have this set up with an employer already and they offer to pay for the grad school? How does that usually work?
Typically not, or if that does exist, I just haven't heard of it.
Yeah.
There are more expedited pathways. So I have a business partner that I work with, and she knew she wanted to be an OT when she was 18 years old. So she did like a 5-year program where she did her undergrad and master's like combined. I had, obviously, like I said, no idea. So I did like 4 years of my undergrad, and then once I decided I wanted OT school, there were a lot of prerequisites like biology, anatomy, all of those, kinesiology, that I needed to get in. So I had to do an additional semester to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then once I got in, I did a 27-month program.
Okay. So I I can only imagine, like, it's pretty daunting. Like, it's a big risk, right, to commit to the financial obligations of grad school.
Oh,
You know,
definitely.
this is something you've had limited experience with, and yeah, you're just kind of taking this leap of fate that this is going to be the career path that suits you, and that you'll have a job lined up on the other side.
Definitely. I don't know how people choose when they're 18 and just going into school,
Yeah.
unless they knew an OT. I didn't know anyone that was an OT, so that was just not something that was even in my radar. Um, but yeah, financially, I will admit I still have lots of student loans. I'm hopefully near the end because I am doing the public service program. So I
Amazing.
did meet my 10 years, but everything is a little bit tied up at the moment.
Yeah.
But hopefully that will come to an end because, yeah, I think if I were to do it again, I loved my school. I loved my program. I may not have chose to go to a private medical college and maybe gone somewhere that I could afford. But at the time, it was so exciting. And I don't know. It's not that I wouldn't do the same because I think I ended up in the right place. But I think I would have done a little bit more research on like financial impact of it because it's daunting. And yeah, what if you do it and you don't want to be an OT in the end? Yeah.
Yeah, that's super tough. Tell me more about your selection criteria in deciding the school where you got your graduate degree from.
So when I did it, I'm from like a small town in northern Nevada. I knew I wanted to stay somewhat West Coast. And honestly, there just really weren't a lot of OT programs. Um, like pretty much everything that I described, Colorado, New Mexico, Oregon, like these are the closest places that I could go. Um, I went and did a few interviews at some of the different schools. I did one in January in Phoenix, Arizona, and I was coming from Tahoe, like buried in snow, and it was 75 and beautiful, and I just decided this is where I wanted to do grad school. Um, I didn't know a lot about, like, the program. I only went to accredited programs, so that was one thing I would recommend for anyone going into school. Or do your research and see how close the program is to being accredited. But yeah, that's kind of how I decided. I just like the weather
And the fact that it was close to home in a
close
way.
to home. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you receive any kind of mentorship from your professors in your undergrad to help you kind of figure this path out?
Yeah, honestly, being in that autism program, that professor, he was amazing. And the thing that drew me to him is he thought so different just about, like, he would have been a great OT. He thought so different about children with autism that I had ever seen before. I didn't know that, like, I thought it was some crippling, like, we have to cure them and make them better. And his perspective was so different. And I learned so much from him. And I was nervous when I told him that I was going to go be an OT, or at least attempt to be an OT. And he was like, "It's great. You should do it." And he really did kind of help me through that. So that was awesome. Yeah.
Well, that's great. Yeah,
Mhm.
so I think a lot of people think OT is just about like fine motor skills or handwriting. How do you explain your parents? How do you explain your role to parents who are brand new to pediatric OT?
Yeah. So OT as a whole, I mean, it's really using meaningful activities to
Hmm.
help people live, happier and healthier lives. So it's either rehabilitation, like you had an injury and then you need to get back to where you were before, or it could be habilitation, which is what I'm doing with kids. So they're kind of learning these skills for the first time, no matter, where they started. Um, so yeah, we're kind of coming at it from different lenses. You may even be doing something where you maintain skills. So it's less common with kids. I mean, it is common, but there are different diseases that you just know it's coming. It's inevitable. And so you're trying to maintain skills as long as you can. Um, a large part of OT is fine motor skills and learning handwriting, but there's also so much more when it comes to being in a school. So, like, there's foundations before that. So, um, I won't specifically work on handwriting until I know a student can even participate in that classroom. Can they sit in the right chair? Do they have the right materials in front of them? Um, all of those types of things. So, yeah. Sometimes when I think about school, someone once described to me that there's a lot of tiles when it comes to a school. So there's teachers, that might be tiles, and then there's a principal, there's the cafeteria staff, and the janitors that keep everything clean. There's all these different roles that everyone plays in a school.
Yeah.
And someone told me once that OT is the grout. So if a student
Oh
needs
my
to
God.
participate in the cafeteria, I can make sure they have the right utensils. If a student, if they're going to the principal all the time and there's a lot of discipline happening, like, we can work on incentives and programs to help them buy into school and participate more. Um, yeah, if they need to go to PE, like, we might help them access with different equipment or different supports, things like that. So yeah, we're kind of in everything,
Yeah.
but working as a team.
I love that analogy with the grout. I really like that.
Yeah.
How much of your job is spent dealing with like state or local regulations and things like that?
So working for a school district, I do a little bit less than that than previously when I worked in private clinics. In a school district, we do bill Medi-Cal, um, but we have district doctors. So the same as across everyone in OT, like, I have to do treatment plans and request authorizations. So we have a billing system where I take, like, daily documentation and I keep track of everyone that I've assessed and if I'm recommending OT and how much OT I'm recommending. And then that goes kind of to our doctor and then that gets shuffled out. So I don't have to necessarily I'm not at the forefront of fighting for insurance coverage and things like that. That's kind
Yeah.
of taken care of through state funding, and federal funding. It's
Okay.
different in private OT, though. You are a lot more kind of fighting to prove that you are making a difference. And I think same as everyone in the medical field, you probably are not getting the funding that you think you deserve, so you have to fight for a little bit more.
Yeah, tell me more about the private practice. What was your role there?
Yeah, so right out of school, I started working in a private clinic in Arizona. And that was also amazing. It was a huge clinic. I worked alongside lots of physical therapists and music therapists and speech therapists, and we all worked together. It was a great place for me to start because I was able to really all the time observe what everyone else was doing. I was constantly learning from everyone around me. Um, I will admit there were times I had no clue what I was doing. I was Googling things and problem solving on the fly, and it was it was really great to get my start in that type of setting. Um, the schools are definitely great. There's a little less mentorship that you're kind of on your own. So we have seniors who are awesome and they can help us, but you are kind of on your own. So per school, there's typically only one OT. There, if it's a really large school, there might be two OTs. But for the most part, you're on your own a little bit more. So you have to kind of go out and seek out that mentorship. In private practice, it was awesome because you're kind of alongside everyone all the time. And it's a different model. So there's a medical model versus educational. I kind of explained that in school, I have to make sure that what's happening is impacting them at school. So, like I said, there's some types of disabilities that may not impact them at school, or it might just be something that we want to be aware of. And then if something ever arises, then we might need to step in. But privately, it's all functional skills. So it's everything home and in the community, which is
Hmm.
obviously like a lot grander scale. It's more than one setting.
Yeah.
So they're going to work on a lot more like self care skills and things like that, community access. It's just a broader scope of what they're able to work on. And then schools is a narrower scope than that.
So the tiles are set a bit further apart. You need a lot more grout in between them.
Exactly. Exactly. It
Can
was
you?
definitely a mind shift when I came from a setting where, I mean, in a sense, it felt like everyone needed OT or everyone could benefit from OT, you know? So then I came to school and I had to be a lot more like specific about like who got OT, do they actually need it? Because sometimes too much therapy is not always the best thing. Um, so yeah,
Yeah.
I
So
had to
what
shift.
made you decide to transition from a private clinic to a school system?
My student loans.
Gotcha.
So yeah, I was working in private practice, which I really did love. Definitely, like all jobs, there's pros and cons. I loved
Uh-huh.
working in private practice. And then my mom, I told you, had been a teacher for a very long time. And I knew I never wanted to work in a school initially. And then, but working in a school is part of public service. And so there is a loan forgiveness program if you do 10 years. And that's felt so daunting 10 years ago because I just hit my 10 years. That felt like so long, but I really at first I was hesitant to work in the schools, but I've really grown to love it because I realize how much time kids are at school. And you have so much access to also their peers, which you don't have in a private clinic because kids come by appointment. So, kind of your scope of what you're seeing is just through that. So, it's really great to see kids as being one among the whole. And then the differences that you can make because you're also just broadening every kid's perspective. It's kind of this ability awareness, like everyone has strengths, and you're just making that more noticeable. So, it's really cool to do that in schools and it's just kids are there, like, so long. Sometimes you're with kids a lot more than their parents on the general Monday through Friday,
Absolutely. Yeah.
so you can make a pretty big difference.
Yeah, and you're doing that, at an elementary school for 6 or 7 years if they start there in kindergarten, right? Go through 5th or 6th grade.
Yeah.
That's a really long time, so you get to see those kids grow. Can you
Mhm.
share a story of a child whose daily life you changed, and have you been able to keep tabs with them since?
I try to keep tabs on all my kids in general. So I have a lot of kids that I start with when they're 3 years old in preschool, and then I will see them all the way till in Point Loma, they go till 4th grade, and then they'll
Okay.
go on to middle school.
Yep.
Um, but no, it's just amazing. Sometimes it's me, sometimes it's just development, sometimes, it's obviously a team effort, but it's so awesome to see because sometimes when you're seeing a kid every single week for years, you don't notice it. Like you don't see, those changes so much. And then my favorite is when they go to middle school for like 1 year and then they come back and they're 2 feet taller and they're, too cool to talk to you. But I don't know, you just then you have this moment where you're like, "Oh my gosh, like wow, you came so far." And it is cool to see, every year we do an IEP, which is like, their individualized education plan, and just updating that. It's paperwork, so it's not fun in that sense, but just to see like what has happened in 1 year's time is it's very cool to see that. So in particular, I've had I think only the last, like, few years have I had kids that starting to go to high school now, and
Yeah,
that is what is, like, mind-blowing to me because these are, like, adults. They're about
right.
to go into the workforce, and it's just wild to see that this is the kid who was at 3 years old under the table crying, didn't wanna come out, and now they're, like, flourishing into these humans that are gonna benefit society. It's awesome.
That really is amazing. Yeah, and just the fact that you can feel like you had a part to play in that, even if you think it was small, I'm sure it wasn't. But that's got to be incredibly rewarding.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned earlier about how you didn't learn until you were a few years in about these different paths that OTs can take. Can you talk more about what all those different paths are for young people that are looking to explore a career in occupational therapy?
Yeah. When I was in school, my courses were pretty much divided by like age range. So there was
Okay.
pediatrics, and
Yeah.
then we did like adolescents, and we did adults, and then we did older adults, like the aging population, which that's the one that always scared me the most. I was just so nervous about working with older people, and I always envisioned it like that's when accidents happen, and
Yeah.
um, yeah, but I learned the same. Older adults are just as resilient as kids, so it was pretty awesome. Um, and then within each of those aging populations, we would look at the different settings. So we have hospital settings, we have private settings like the outpatient where you come by appointment. We could work anywhere from group homes to schools. There's people that there's even OTs that do ergonomics, like go into office buildings and they may set it up correctly for somebody so that you're preventing disabilities down the line. So it's really neat to do that. Part of our OT school is you do field work rotations. So we have two level ones, which are 40 hours. So I did one in an inpatient hospital in Reno, um, in Nevada, so closer to home. And that was amazing. There was traumatic brain injuries. Tahoe is a extreme sports mecca. So there was a lot of
That's where my
snowboarding.
brother-in-law got injured. He used to live in Reno. He went to UNR, and then he got in this accident on Mount Rose. So he was
Wow.
yeah, so he was in that urgent care in Reno
Oh my gosh.
for
Yeah.
for a
That's where
couple
I did
months.
my rotation. I also
Yeah.
went to UNR for my undergrad.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Um, yeah, that's really crazy, but it is a really great hospital, especially, yeah, for brain injuries and things like that. So that was fascinating to me to see that different world of OT. I
Yeah,
also did upper extremity rehab, which is what brought me to San Diego. I did a rotation at Sharp, and that was also really cool. And I was here when I was doing that. We had some of the Chargers players. That was really cool.
very
Lots of people.
cool.
I had like cops that were like narcotics division that got injured on the job, and um, yeah, just lots of really interesting injuries. And one of the cool things about being an OT is it's super client centered. So you really have to get to know your client because you want to know what's meaningful to them so that you know what you're working towards. So just the stories and the relationships that I would build with these people was so cool. Like that was a really interesting um I never thought about working with adults, but that's such a great perspective when you're working with them is that you get to know them differently. Kids are not telling me about their whole life, but or they are, but it's coming
Some
out
of
in
them
weird
are.
chunks and you're piecing it together. um, but yeah, that was a really cool opportunity that I had to come here.
Was that over by that Sharp next to Rady's?
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
yeah.
Yeah, when my brother-in-law after he got injured and after he did his rehab in Denver, he moved in with us here in San Diego, and he went to that same hospital there for some of his outpatient OT.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, small world, very cool.
yeah.
I guess what traits would you say would really help, if young people were to do, like, an aptitude test, right,
Right.
um, and look at the traits that come out and they really wanna be an OT, what traits do you think would really help them?
I would say it's like that curiosity and like human development and like society and just understanding like the importance of like the role that people play to make society function and vice versa. So like how society can help people function. So just being curious basically about how the world works. I don't know if that's on an aptitude test, but like
I love that.
just that interest in like I guess it's a science, like the science of people and understanding because that is what I learned most just all the way through school. School can't teach you every skill that you need to be an OT. Um, Same thing, like I did have to know anatomy, and that does come in handy, especially in some settings, especially if you're working in rehab or things like that. And I did have to learn like the science of the body and all of that. But at the same time, I more so had to learn how to problem solve.
Yeah.
So OT school doesn't necessarily teach you all those skills, like I was saying. They more so teach you how to think and then how to find the answers for these things. So I definitely think that OT is more of a mindset, I guess. And you have to be willing to know that or understand that there are things that you don't know. And so you just, you don't know what you don't know. And you have to be accepting of that and then figure out how you can know. Um, and really, it's a lot of soft skills. It's a lot of talking to people. It's a lot of, if this doesn't work, let's try something else. It's working on teams. You have to get along with everybody. Working in school, sometimes the hardest part of my job is not working with children, it's working with adults. And I think that's the same across all settings. It's working with insurance companies, working with supervisors,
Right.
um, and it's being confident, but also willing to listen and see different perspectives. So you are an expert in the way that you think and the skills that you have, whether it be through experience or initially it's through school.
Yeah.
So it's being confident in that, but at the same time, being open to other perspectives and finding ways to make them fit together.
Would you recommend that for other OTs that wanna end up working at a school, that they spend some time in a private clinic first?
Recommend honestly seeing all the things that OT can do because
Yeah.
schools are great. I think new generations are changing. Like our parents probably worked at the same job for 35 years. And
Right.
I don't think that that is the normal anymore. I don't think
Not at
that
all.
young
Yeah.
people, I don't even want to do that.
Yeah.
I don't think that people younger than me want to do that. So when we talked earlier about the big commitment and spending all that money and going to OT school, in a sense, I'm still very glad I did that because OT is so broad. You can do anything. So I do think working in a school, it is helpful to start. I would recommend starting in a private clinic. So yes to that question because I do think you learn a little bit quicker when you're side by side with other therapists. Um, but I've met amazing OTs that started in the schools and did it on their own. And it might be a little more like self-learning, seeking out the answers yourself. But like I said,
Yeah.
that's what we learn in OT school. So you can do it.
Yeah, and I can imagine it's gotta be daunting to go from a clinic setting where you're working with other people in these cases, and then go into a school where you're the subject expert and everybody's looking to you.
Yes.
Do you communicate with the parents, quite often, or is it really just kinda once a year when you do those IEPs reviews?
Ideally, it's not once a year. There are
Yeah.
rare cases where it's once a year, but ideally, no. It's being a part of the community, it's being a part of your school.
Yeah.
So, I see parents that pick up and drop off, and if I have a question, I reach out to them. Sometimes kids tell me something going on, and I'm like, I'm going to check in.
Yeah.
A large part of it is developing those relationships. One difficult switch for me when I came from clinics is kids were coming by appointment. So I was seeing parents every single time they came. I
Yeah.
was, telling them like recommendations, what we did, what to practice at home. And in school, you can tell a kid, tell your parents this, and you know that
It's not happening.
98% they're not
Yeah.
going to do that.
Yeah.
So that was a little bit harder for me. And I just realized that I needed to kind of seek out that relationship building a little bit more than I had to before when it just became a little bit more natural for me.
Oh, that's very interesting, and so how do you do that? Do you do that through email or on these drop off or pickup conversations?
I try and do as much in person as I can just because
Yeah.
I am chatty like that and I feel like I can pick up it just the conversation flows a little bit easier.
Yeah.
If there is a parent that I haven't seen in a while or something's coming up, yeah, I will reach out by email or phone. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, those emails just get lost. I feel like parents are so overwhelmed with emails from
Mhm.
school and sports and all that, so it
Yeah.
helps to have the face-to-face conversation for sure.
Mhm. COVID
Um,
time was actually a weird shift for us because, like everyone else, we had to go online and figure out how to do all of these sessions. And
yeah.
it was so interesting because I was in their home. I was like meeting grandma and the dog and like uncle and all these people. And it, in a way, was such a blessing because I built so many relationships like during that time. Even
Yeah.
my kids, I had they had different personalities because 'cause they're in their PJs still, and, it was just a different vibe, but I definitely won't take that for granted. I think we learned a lot through that of how we can build those relationships.
Yeah, that was a wild time. Tell me,
Mhm.
tell me about work-life balance. So, is this one of those roles where generally, when you're done for the day, you put in a couple extra hours before you head home, or are you working really long hours during the week and weekends? What's it like?
Um, Very much depends on the day, depends on the
Yeah,
year,
yeah,
sometimes the week. So there have been times where I had, quite a few schools, and we do have, with San Diego, school district that I work for, we do have codas, which are OT assistants that can help us. So that's helpful, but it really depends on, how many meetings you have coming up. There are times where I get behind and I might have to go to a coffee shop on the weekend. I definitely tried not to the older that I'm getting. When I was younger, I put in a lot of effort on a lot of things, and a lot of it was just like self-learning. So I wasn't familiar with this, so I was going to study up on that. And I think that that is helpful, but I'm older now, and so I'm leaning a lot more into experience. And I try not to. I definitely try to use my time at work wisely,
yeah.
so that I don't have to do that. But it does occasionally I do have to take work home.
And then, do you generally work through like a school calendar? So summers you have off, or are you spending a lot of time at the school then as well?
So, because most of our students are in special education, our district does do an extended school year. So we do support students through that. It's more like isolated, working on just like their goals that we've set for them.
Yeah,
It's a really nice time though because I mean, teachers try to make it more relaxed. Kids, don't want to be there. It's summer. So they make it a little bit more fun. A lot of it is more science based. And then we don't have to do any of our IEPs and things like that in summer. So also for us as, the
less
OTs that are
paperwork.
working. Yeah, it's less work, it's more fun. But then we do in the summer I end up getting 3 weeks off, plus I get Christmas break and I get a spring break and Thanksgiving break. So
Oh,
that
that's
is
great.
definitely a perk of working in the school districts.
Yeah, but I love that they have the extended program because look, when I'm done on Friday, like, and I come back to work on Monday, like that weekend, I've already forgotten everything. So I can
Exactly.
only
Yeah.
imagine um, how much that, just how much bigger that must feel for these kids and taking a whole summer off. So it's really great that
Mm,
that you commit time during the summer to keep that going with them.
exactly. And for some of them, it's great too because it's a little bit scary. It's a different class, it's a different teacher, new kids come. It's
Yeah,
almost like a jump start on a smaller scale of what the next school year will be. So,
yeah.
I like that aspect of it. It's like a trial run before you have to jump right back into school.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Um, does because you work because you're in public service, do you get a pension or how does all that work?
Yes, I get all of these adult things. I get a pension. So that's really awesome. On the side, I'm able to start, my own retirement fund.
Yep.
So yeah, that's really great. All of
And
our
then
health insurance is paid for. Yeah.
oh, that's amazing. And then
Mhm.
generally, when is retirement age for OTs that work for school districts?
So I don't exactly know how all of this works. I am starting to dive into it a little bit more. I believe it's like for the most amount since I've started, because I've only been there for 10 years. But for like the most bang for my buck, if I wanted the most, I would work until I was 67.
Okay.
I can retire sooner. You just take less of your pay.
Pension. Yep. That makes sense. It's similar to, it sounds like that's similar to teachers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We are in a different pay scale than teachers, which there's different perspectives on this. I would like to switch to the teacher's pay scale, but that requires us getting certificated because
Okay.
we're in a different union than them. So we have a 5-step pay scale, and then teachers have a very large pay scale, like it's like 20 steps or something. Theirs goes by the amount of school and the units that they take, and then also how long they've been employed. So um, it's a little bit more incentive to keep stepping up. Most OTs, like if you've been with the district for 10 years, you are kind of capped out in your pay.
Okay.
There are, raises and things like that that happen as the teachers union kind of, as they advocate for raises, then we also get those raises.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so that's been helpful. But all of that stuff, yeah, I would like to be on the other pay scale just because I think it's a little bit more incentivizing. So
Yeah,
not
for
only
sure.
is incentive to stay longer, it's also incentive to continue your education.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Do you have to, are you required to do continuing education throughout your career?
So yeah, to keep your license, you do have to do a certain number of continuing education units or professional development. So we have both a state and a national license, and they both have different requirements.
Okay.
One great benefit of working for the school district is that they provide like the minimum requirements for that, so you don't have
That's
to go
great.
seek that out because
Yeah,
it can be very expensive.
for sure.
But it also you still have the opportunity to go out and do your own courses if you want to.
And tell me about licensing. How does that all work?
So when you first graduate, then you sit for your board exams. So NBCOT, which is the National Board Certification for Occupational Therapy. You take this really big 4-hour exam. You got to go to a testing facility.
Yeah.
You have to do all of that. That was a long time ago. I remember being very scared. I remember studying for weeks and weeks. But
Yeah.
yeah, once you pass that, that's how you get your R. After our name, we have OTRL. So OT is occupational therapist. R is that you are now like registered. And then you'll apply for your state licensure. So states have all different things. It's not another test, but it might be, letters of recommendation, your work experience, different things like that. So there's different requirements. And then you'll get that. And then that is your L. So then now you'll be an OTR-L.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
So, this is a really long process to become an OT.
It is, and it's a lifelong learning process
For
because,
sure.
I mean, anything in medicine, it's always changing, so there's
Yeah.
always new information and new research.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I heard a a quote the other day where, somebody's like, they were going to med school and their professor said that, like, of all the things that they're learning in their medical books, 50% of it is wrong. They just
Yeah.
they just don't know which 50% yet, right? And then over time, all that stuff kinda pans out. That's so wild. So it's good that you continue education. On that long road to becoming an OT, what was the most daunting task? Was it applying for grad school? Was it, some of the coursework or the rotations you had to do in grad school? Was it preparing for the licensing exam? Was it looking for a job? What was it, and how'd you get through it?
Um, I would say 2 parts were pretty hard. So I would say the first year of OT school is a lot of science courses. It's a lot
Yeah,
of anatomy and neuroscience, and my brain just that has a difficult time with that. That was really
yeah,
challenging for me to memorize so many things. We also worked with cadavers. That was, like,
wow,
mind-blowing to me. Like, I look back and it was fascinating, but I had no idea that like I said, I thought I was gonna work with kids with autism. I had no clue that I was in for this whole thing.
yeah,
Um, but it was very cool. I learned a ton. I wouldn't say I still have all of that information here, but I at least know how to find that information very quickly.
yeah. You
So
know a
that first
cadaver
year
when you see one.
yes. That first year was very, very challenging, I would say. But after that, you get more into like, you're excited then. You're learning, like, what it's like in the real world. You're learning about all these different areas that you can work in. That was very cool. The next daunting part was, I would say, applying for jobs, and I think this is universal in anyone applying for jobs is no one wants to hire you if you don't have experience. Yeah, how do you get experience if no one wants to hire you? So that was really challenging, but I would really say lean into who you know and make connections because that's how most people get their first job is they met this person or they did a field work here, they know somebody.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I don't think I've ever gotten a job, maybe one job with a resume. Everything else is just through personal connections that you make over
Yeah.
time. Were
Yeah.
those connections through, friends and family, or was it through the school network?
So my first OT job, I did end up taking a job with of the clinic in Arizona and I had done a field work rotation there.
Amazing.
So
Yeah, that's
that
great.
was awesome that then they offered me the position.
Yeah,
I did apply to other positions around that same time, and I did get offered a couple jobs in different places. I chose that one, but they were all kind of that setting.
yeah,
When I did San Diego, when I came here, and I did work in a private clinic for a little while, and then that's kind of when I was realizing I needed to do something about my student loans. So that's when I did just randomly apply for the school district and I got the interview and I did it the old school way. I did all the things and it definitely worked out. Um, I wish I would have known somebody, and I think that that is something that is important because I think OT is just getting more and more competitive. I had never heard of it, but now I think more and more people know about it. I
yeah,
think more people have had a experience with it. Funding is better for it. So I definitely think it's a little bit more competitive than it was at the time I was going through. And I felt like it was competitive. So not to
yeah.
scare anyone, but definitely I think use connections, reach out, get mentors.
I think, I really like the fact that it is getting more competitive because I feel like this is
Hmm.
a really important role for the world, right? And for
Yep.
our kids. So I'm glad that there are people interested in it and people are working hard to try and achieve this career path. So
Hmm.
that's a positive for me, I feel like.
Yeah.
Um, and so you mentioned like state licensing, you're working for a school district in San Diego. Um, how difficult would it be for you to pick up and move to another state? Would you have to go through new licensing? Are there new rules and regulations that you have to learn? I guess specifically for working for a school.
So working for a school, I think that the job, the day to day would be very similar. I feel like there might be some specialized schools that might only take students who have autism, for example, or things like that. But for the most part, I think the day to day would be very similar.
Yeah,
I would just do a lot of prep in advance. So depending on what state I was moving to, I would try to get my license before I went there. There
gotcha.
are, like, contracting companies, so a lot of students out of school take a job with a contracting company, and they do help walk you through all of these processes. So
That's
they'll help
amazing.
you, get all your paperwork in place, apply for your licensing. They might even pay for it. Um, in the end, it's probably coming out of your pay in the long run, but they do walk you through those things. So that's always kind of a plus. And then as you get experience, then you can always do that on your own as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's great. Because there aren't always jobs that where you can move freely from region to region, right? It's
Mhm.
like biotech, for example. If you work there, you're kind of stuck in Boston or the Bay Area or San Diego.
Yeah.
Software has its own niches and oil and gas has its own places. So that's really great that you kind of have that freedom of movement, as long as you get the paperwork done ahead of time.
Right.
Yeah, I
There's
like
also
that
a
idea.
very cool it's a big part of OT, but, there's travel OT. So,
I was gonna ask if they have that, like travel nurses.
yes, it's the same thing. It's like 13 weeks at different settings.
That's
Um,
amazing.
there's a risk in that, like, you're going in and you don't know what you're walking into. So, like, there's always that. Um, But man, if you are adventurous and you think you can just, learn on your feet as you go, that is a great way to get experience in a lot of different places, a lot of different settings. Um, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I've met a few travel nurses, and it just seemed like such a great concept.
Mhm.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
awesome to do that for OTs as well.
Yeah.
What, uh, what advice would you have for people in this process currently in their undergrad and they wanna become an OT?
If you were an undergrad, I would definitely recommend just exploring the field as a whole because, like we said, it is a big financial commitment. I
Yeah.
know even with new legislation, like the amount of loans they're going to offer you may not even cover school. So it's going to be even more of an impact. But really explore all the different fields, explore what it looks like in a hospital or there's OTs that work for workers' comp. So, like, you could explore something like that. Uh, yeah, I would just do a lot of research in all the different areas. So if there's only one tiny area of OT that you want to work in, that might not be the risk that you want to take. So I would have lots of options because you may not get into that. I remember there were certain people that I went to school with that were like, I'm going to work in burns, like in burn units. That was the big thing. Um, it's very hard to get a job in a burn unit. It's not impossible. You can definitely do it. Um, but it would be similar to a doctor that just only wants to do surgery. Like, I would just make sure that if you don't get that one or you don't get it right away, are there other areas that you want to work in as well? Because I do think higher education is a big commitment, and there are similar roles that don't require the same. The pay might be different, but I would just make sure that you have a broad picture of what it is. Kind of
Yeah.
do opposite of what I did because I didn't know what it was. But like, if I were to do it again, I think I would land in the same place, but I would have a better understanding going in.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. And what about for somebody that's kinda just starting out, they're licensed, they've got a job, they're their freshman year at work. What advice would you have for them?
I would just say stick with it because the beginning is hard. I will admit that. There were so many things that you don't go to school learning about how much paperwork you're going to have to do and how many reports you're going to have to write. And if you're in private practice, you don't learn about having to fight with insurance companies to prove that you're making a difference. Um, there was a lot of things like that that I like had to learn on the job. And same thing, there's a lot of people who may work alongside you who you don't you don't like their style or there's unethical practices that happen. That was something that happened to me kind of right out the gate is I saw a lot of like unethical practices and I didn't know what was right or what was wrong and I felt
Yeah.
like that was kind of scary. Like we have licenses that we worked really hard for and um, yeah, I had to learn a lot of things, but I would say after those first couple years, like it it falls into place. Like you learn what's right, you learn how the system works. But that first couple years, like just push through. It's not that it's awful. It's just that it's overwhelming, I would say.
Yeah.
And maybe
Yeah.
that's similar to every job.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you have so many more pieces to manage than I feel like
Yeah.
a typical corporate job coming in their first year. A
It's
typical
hard being
corporate
burnt
job, you
out.
come in your first year, nobody wants to give you any responsibility, right? Because it's
Right.
like it's high risk, but it seems like you just kinda get thrown into the right into the deep end,
Yeah.
and there's a
Well, and
lot
the
to
second part
learn.
of that is find a mentor. Oh,
That's great advice too,
the
yeah.
great part about like technology now is we are so connected. Your mentor does not have to be someone that you work with. You could find someone in a Facebook forum that is an OT in a district, across the country and bounce ideas off each other. And I think that that's really, really helpful is just finding other people in a similar situation that can help you and you can problem solve together.
Yeah, that's great advice. This might be an obvious question for your role, right? But what's the best part about this job?
Best part about the job, I think, is that it's whatever you want to make it. Like, that's what I have loved about OT is I have had years where I'm determined to, do this one thing and I'm really focused on it. And then other years I'm like, you know what? I'm really interested in this. And I can pull all of these different aspects of like, I'm very passionate about play. This is kind of my big thing. And like, I can incorporate that into my day every day working in a school. If I worked
Yeah,
with adults, I would find a way to incorporate that into my day every day as well. So
right.
I think OT is very much just a passion career. And if you find your passion every day, you're going to be happy. So it's not, obviously, that's not always the case. It's not possible every single day. You're going to have rough days. But if you can find something every day that you're a little bit passionate about, I think that's why we do this.
Oh, I really love that. I think I want to end on that note because that was really great. All I can say is thank you for everything you do for our kids and all the other OTs out there, for the help that they're providing people like what my brother-in-law got. I think you all make a really big impact and it seems like a really rewarding job. So all I can say is thank you and thank you for your time now.
Yes, no problem. I'm happy to do it.
Interesting. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Kristy as much as I did. She has an incredibly rewarding job, and her passion for working with children is wonderful. I had no idea that OTs had to study so many medical science related subjects, such as anatomy, kinesiology, and neuroscience. The path to become an OT certainly seems long and arduous, but the payout for such a rewarding job with great work-life balance and job security make it all a worthwhile endeavor. It was really cool to hear about the option for OTs to work for a travel contractor, where they can work short-term to medium-term contracts as they travel around the country, similar to travel nurses. After our conversation, Kristy took some time to tell me all about a nonprofit that she and a colleague started called Outreach Theraplay, where they travel the world to build playgrounds that are accessible to children with disabilities. They have a trip coming up to build an accessible playground in Costa Rica. If you're interested in joining them on that trip or are willing to donate to their cause, visit their website at outreachtheraplay.org. If you enjoyed this podcast, give us a like and follow. You can also check out our website at htbpod.com to see a database of jobs we've interviewed for already. And if you feel like you have an interesting career and want to tell your own story on our podcast, just go to htbpod.com and submit the form. Thanks again, and see you next week.